Thank you again for having me. I appreciate it so much to share a little bit about what planning and design, some of the things that we do. Within this presentation tonight, we're going to kind of focus on those that people seem unaware of, or maybe they don't appreciate some of the challenges or difficulty that goes behind these projects. So I only am going to go over a few tonight, and just there's a lot more, but we only got an hour, and so I'm just going to talk about that. A little more about the planning manager division. We're growing this division because we really are providing a planning and design service for our park maintenance folks, and then also all the large projects that we have. I'll help with the planning or getting grant funding, and then also walk through with the design of what it is and making sure we're getting what we want, and then make sure that it gets constructed and implemented. And so I have my hands in it from the very beginning to the end, which I don't get to do as many projects as I used to do in private practice, but I get to see it from the beginning all the way to the end. And of course, most of us that choose government, it's so we can set the policies. We can choose what projects we think our citizens or our communities would like to have, versus being, okay, here, we want you to work on this project. So I just feel like I can serve more and just make sure we have a good quality product. And then I just love all the diversity. So thank you for letting me share that with you tonight. So we'll start off with our unappreciated projects. So these unappreciated projects are really focused on trying to bring a little more biodiversity in our city through landscape enhancements, usually right-of-way plantings, our restoration efforts that we have, trying to restore something back to its original as best we can, and then trying to conserve what we have. So I'm going to talk about our Green Ribbon program as part of some of our landscape enhancements, and then the Trinity River Authority sewer line replacement in Park Prairie as part of our restoration. There's more of these projects, but I'm just highlighting these tonight. And then for conservation, which I'm just having a blast with Settlers Park. This is one of our newer parks, and I hope you will love it as much as I do at the end of the presentation. So how many of you have heard about our Green Ribbon projects along the highway right-of-ways? One. So back in 2014, we developed a plan to kind of enhance corridors within the city of Grapevine to kind of say, welcome, welcome. We want to put our best foot forward for those who are coming in to visit, and for residents that are here and having to drudge back and forth to their work day, that maybe they can have something nice to look at along the highways. We've implemented 6 phases of plantings along these corridors. Oh, and I forgot I got a little laser thing, so I can stand way over here, right? Oh, it's on the wall. It doesn't work on the screen. Wah, wah. Okay, that's okay. So what I'm going to use, so here on the map, yes, here. So here is our city limit of Grapevine. Here you'll see 114 in this nice little green kind of red area. So this is one of the corridors, right? It's 114. It really splits our city in half. Then we have State Highway 26. Can you hear me okay if I'm facing this way? Okay. So then we have State Highway 26 was one of the corridors. And then, of course, up from the south where 121 and 360 merge. Some of these little blue circles is where we originally thought, hey, this would be really good to maybe have a monument sign or what have you. We haven't implemented that part, obviously, but it was a little difficult to try to get a consensus on what the monument sign would look like and what have you. But landscape, they were all in. Hey, let's get something out there other than just grass. Let's try to get some trees. Let's try to get some shrubs. And so that's what we did. So in 2015, our first phase began. So phase 1, 2, and 3 is all on this 114 corridor from Texan Trail all the way down to Ira E. Woods, where Baylor Scott and White, Target, Academy, and then Texan Trail, where you got Boomer Jacks and all that. So that was our first phase. And then you can kind of see then we went up north, believe it or not, FM 2499, where you kind of have some of the furniture stores and the like up there on the top, from Stars and Stripes to just south of where Denton Creek crosses underneath. And then we had 5 down here, which was this really nice piece of property there where they merge. And we even Stonemeyer Parkway was a part of that as well. We kind of could hide some of the TxDOT roadway. I'll show you some pictures of this in a second. And last but not least, this was my favorite, is our the one that we just completed along State Highway 26, called it kind of our entertainment corridor, which is what these folks were really waiting for. And I think we kind of waited for the best for last, from Texan Trail on up to the 2499 overpass. So now we have a nice entrance into the mall, and then it really tries to tie the mall, the kind of outlier, in with sort of the main piece of the city. I think, yeah, it's too blurry, and I've slept since all this was done. And so I'm pretty sure that it's probably saying this is the industrial corridor. Talking about some of this industrial use that we have. So phase 7, that's showing, that was the project that we were applying for funds. So this was our graphic that we were using, saying, hey, we're going to apply for this. And even though it's phase 6 and 7, we had to split them apart because this was right around, right after COVID hit, prices exploded. So I kind of said, hey, can I get some more money kind of for the same thing but different? And they said, sure. And I was like, yay. So we got more monies. So it was all good. But that's why it was red, because I just took the graphic off of what we presented. All of this, it is supposed to be parkland, but that doesn't mean all of this stuff. I think what happened, yeah, they just incorporated some areas that shouldn't have been incorporated in there. But most of it is parkland. But yes, the mall is covered. I'm not sure why. Don't know. We got the money, got built. It's all good. Okay.
Blue dots that were gonna be the memorial, but what kind of things were you thinking about? Monuments or memorials?
We had, so there was different concepts. So some had, like 20-foot tall bunch of grapes with little vines. Some were like, the horse and wagon, and there was just a bunch of things. And then there was just the normal welcome to Grapevine. But I have one. I have one, and they beat us to it. But if we would have gone with ours, there wouldn't have been any trees to have torn down, where it would have been right across from Perry's. And the tower actually mimics the one on here at Peace Plaza in Harvest Hall. Yeah, 40 feet tall. We got it. But now, now it's like, okay, that's bring it down to scale and bring it down to something else. So
I think maybe that, if it was ever called the green,
the green ribbon,
certainly think all of us, well, it's landscaping and it looks really good.
right? Well, thank you. We're starting to. We're getting our workflows. We're getting better. So let me give you a little bit about the Green Ribbon Project. So this, back in 2001, our state legislator said, "Hey, TxDOT, we want to contribute 0.5% of all of highway monies that are being spent in one fiscal year. So like the previous year, we want to take 5% of that and apply it to landscape enhancements to mitigate air pollution." Because I know that the trees and the shrubs and the grasses, take in carbon, try to filter out some of that stuff. And so, and this was a program back in the 90s that Houston had started through the Houston district, and it was just a huge success. And so the state said, "Hey, everybody needs to do that." And doing so from that 0.5%, each district is given so many dollars. And since we had a master plan and we kind of had a vision for what we wanted and what we wanted to do, they really liked that. And they knew that we were purposeful in what we were doing. So we were awarded funds at every phase. So that was just awesome. Yes.
How do those funds get applied to grant fund? Do you have to
We
submit
can
a grant?
we compete. Yep. We submit. Yes. So from all those phases, over 50 acres of pollinator-friendly plantings, because I only pick native and or adaptive. So, they're not all native, but they're adaptive. They do well. Over 1,000 trees. That includes shade trees and ornamental or understory trees. 23,000 native and adaptive shrubs. 48,000 native or ornamental grasses. And the reason I know these numbers is because I have touched and counted every single one of these. Not only did I have to inspect to make sure it's what we wanted, but I also had to submit for payment that it got done. If you're interested, these are the trees, these are the shrubs, and the ornamental grasses that we have out there that have done really well, except for the black and blue sage. That's it's a little too tender. I did leave it on there because there are some protected areas that it does really well. But in cars going by at 70 and 80 miles per hour, or sitting at the intersection with all the exhaust coming out and having oils rush in on them from the roadways, they do pretty well. They do well. Here are some pictures of the projects. This one in the upper left, you can see Boomer Jacks in the back. So Main Street there. This one down here is, you can see Baylor, Scott and White in the background. This is when you're coming off of the highway. Some Russian sage, Mexican feather, some abelia. Got desert willow back here. Can't make out, maybe Vitex or something there. And then this one in the bottom right is the one on FM 2499. Of course, they're huge now and they've grown up. And some of this is the Mexican bush sage. Yes. And I mean, I'm just out there and I'm like, usually scared to death because all the crap that's going by and everything else. And I'm out there and I'm just and then all of a sudden they just come. I haven't even finished planting the plant and and the bees are there and the butterflies and you're just like, oh my gosh, look before you cross the street. It's like, oh. But they're there and they thrive. And so anyway, I just love walking through and I get a big kick out of that. So it is very beneficial. I know that the pollinators love it because as soon as I plant it, they're out there. And even with the trees, you see the moss and you see some of the gray streaks on there and such, and it's just nice. This is the most recent one. I just took it off of Google because I'm not going to stand in the middle of the road, and they were able to get a really good picture. And so most of what you see on the right, instead of the Gulf Muley or the Regal Miss Muley, we went with red yuccas. I think that turns out looks pretty good. You have some chinkapin and live oak trees. So this is the mall. Mall is right here, and this is 26. Just before we got here is the ramp to go to 121 North, and this is the Grapevine Mills Circle Road Boulevard. Yes, sir.
Within 20 years.
Yes. Yeah. And mhm. Remember we had I can't. Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah. And here are thought those we were trying to brake light yuccas. They're shorter, they're redder. They seem to be doing pretty well. Um, Mexican feather, muley. What I really like are these stone planters, and it really ended up. I wanted to do Corten, and it was just too expensive. And then it was just like, well, we got the guys that do stone. Can they just do this? Yes, sir. Oh, for sure. Everything is irrigated, and it's drip. It's all drip irrigation. Um, Kind of really love-hate relationship with that because of the such extreme topography. Even though when you split the zones up, it's just start at the top, everything at the bottom floods, everything at the top still dry. So a lot of the Mexican feather, I'm like, I need to go back with, with sea oats or something like that, put that down on the bottom or anyway. Um, but TxDOT doesn't allow any sprays. Has to be drip. And it's very difficult to get things to where they can actually benefit from the drip being 3 inches below. Getting it established is very difficult. But anyway, I think this was a really good project at the very beginning, one right after the other. We had some drunks coming out of some of the hotels, ran into the planters, but I was glad to see that. I was like, okay, we're not going to do rebar all the way through. We're going to only do pieces. So if it does get hit, it just explodes apart and they work perfectly. So that's good. So I was like, hey, now we know. Yeah, yeah, a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna switch gears to the Trinity River, the TRA sewer line replacement project. For those of you that live South Grapevine and walk along the trails, y'all are probably very familiar with the disturbance and the upheaval, and because I know y'all called. And but anyway, this was such a necessary project. So this is a regional wastewater line, sewer line, which TRA is responsible for. The current one, 36 inches. Obviously, there's more people, so it wasn't really keeping up with demand. So they needed to put in a bigger line, newer line, 48 inches, because we all enjoy our food and eating and whatever else. So anyway, Grapevine is still further down, and so I'm kind of getting ahead to the next slide, but there's 3 miles all through Grapevine that got replaced. So be thankful. So when you flush, it leaves because nobody wants it staying there. So had they not done this project, we wouldn't be smelling very good. So it was a necessity. This wasn't, somebody just dreamed this up. We need it. And it was, it serves the region. So it goes through a couple of other cities, but our stuff goes into here and versus in, yada yada, it takes it on. So, but 2 miles ran along within our park system from 360 on here. And so what's shown in red from kind of the Bark Park through Bear Creek Park, Wall Farrar, the Rock Art Trail, and we have Heritage right here, and then going in through kind of the Park area, and then if y'all know the Manhole Hill area, which is no more, that's gone away, that's where that project ended. However, they have the Hall Road to take all the stuff out, went all the way to Old Mill Run.
Question. What's that little piece right there that doesn't have red on
So,
it? They're gonna-
because so we have been involved with this project when they started designing back in 2016. Okay. And that was, they were already kind of 30% along with this particular section. So when people call and say, "Are you aware of this project?" It's like, I am very aware of this project. Before it ever got in the ground, we were talking with them. And that's where most of the work was done to kind of, yes, there was a lot of destruction and tree removal. But had we not been so hands-on at the very beginning, they wanted, I guess it's on the next slide, 90-foot wide easements for their construction easement and all that. And so it's like, oh, no, you don't. Let's squeeze that sucker on down. Let's see what we can do. So just working with them and trying to figure out how we can save or not disturb as much of the natural areas as well as our parks and baseball fields. In this process, they were already working on phase 2, or I'm sorry, phase 1, and we were getting ready. We knew we were planning for the Bark Park. And so I guess a year or so later, it's sort of like, well, you got construction going on there? We're getting ready to build this Bark Park, and there's no way we're going to put this in and 6 months later yank it out so you can put this in here. So TRA was, not only were they great to work with and trying to limit their disturbance, they paid the guys extra to stop what they were doing, come over here, do that little section, so then we could come back, build the Bark Park, and it wouldn't get disturbed again. Okay. Yes. And they just had to connect to it on this side and here. So this is just the phase 2. So, hey, it does go under the freeway and then down, all the way down where the preserve is, the new multifamily, it all goes down through there. And yes, all underground. So yeah, so I think, I think we are, and we also took advantage of, well, let's take a moment to relocate some of the trail, either move it away from some obstacles or get it out of some flooded areas. So we were able to take advantage of that and realign some things. We had to move some bridges. Yes, sir.
Do we only have one sewer treatment plant up by the center?
Yes. But that doesn't serve everything. They don't know. That only serves part of the town.
Here.
hmm
And that's the
And then some of our stuff is going into this TRA line, and then we have small, just kind of like the water. So we only have, a water system that only serves a portion of our city to kind of save money, and then we use others to take care of the rest. And then we were able to get some funding for tree mitigation and facility restoration. So lots, most of these large projects, there is so much on the front end that occurs before it ever any construction starts going on. And really, this is the important stuff happening to put it all into motion. So again, a 48-inch diameter pipe. They wanted 70 to 90. We kind of got it down to 60 in a lot of places. And then they're going 15 feet down. Yes, okay. It's just deep. Yeah, and so we don't have to, I'm just, my point is, there was a lot of folks that were like, why do they need all that room? And I'm going to show you some pictures. But when you're having to dig 15 feet down and put a 4-foot diameter pipe and try to keep people safe, and then the large equipment going up and down, then I'll show you some pictures. Then you're like, oh, this isn't like the little plumbing that's in my house. We're not dealing with just 2-inch line. And so anyway, and then, we sent out notices to all the residences. We had to create a little a web page on our website, keep people informed, and then the pedestrian and bicycle traffic, so we could keep the trail open. And I know that was, we were like, we are not closing the trail for 2 years. That is not an option. So, we had flaggers that would look for pedestrians and, take them, hold on, and, put the equipment across. I know there were some times that was a little inconvenient thing, folks out on the trail, and a little difficult, but it was better than having the trail closed for that length of time. And it went over a year over what it was supposed to, mainly because of, remember the supply chain issue? They had to go to Dubai and get their pipe because they didn't have enough pipe. They couldn't get it. So then they had to get another contract, get part of it from Dubai. There was, so then that's a different side. Anyway, it's amazing what all you have to do to get your poop out of the house. Just saying. So there is so much engineering. And then, you couldn't just tell everybody, hey, don't use the bathroom for the next couple of days, right? Because they had to shut the old line down and transfer it over to the new line. And the pumps and whatever else they had to use and everything, it was like, oh my gosh, who knew? Engineers know, not architects, engineers know, but I was just like, this is amazing. Because, anyway. So here you are. This is some really, here they are down 15 feet below. You got this guy's digging the trench. They're digging the trench. They're laying then they put the gravel on the bottom. Then they put the pipe in. They got to protect the guys with the bracing. And then you got people hauling the stuff away. And I'm kind of like, man, maybe I should have given them a little more than the 60 feet that they needed. But anyway, here's the pipe, and then they got to compact it on top. And this just kind of gives you, scale of what's going. Yeah, it's a lot. So they needed the room. Yes, sir. From Old Mill Run further west up to Pool Road, they will be coming in probably a couple of years to extend it and do that piece. Yes, supposedly, is what they told me. And then you have this. You know how you have your little manhole? Well, this is that, but at a bigger scale. So, not only do you have stuff coming in, the regional line, but then you have our stuff coming into it. So there's, yep, exactly. No, that's just, yep, to get all the stuff and redirect. Got to have this long thing to redirect.
It's plastic.
No, it's a type of a fiberglass, and then you have to have it inspected. You have to have it I didn't do any of that. Inspected where it's being manufactured. They bring it out. Then they got to put this coating and stuff on the inside, and you need a particular material to do that. And then you couldn't get it, and then you could finally get it, and then they could go on the inside. And yeah, it's just a lot. And then you have to, well, yeah, because you don't want poop leaking. So it's amazing all the triple, safety things that they have and all this sort of good stuff. Yeah. Okay. So you can see in an aerial view this swath where the line was laid. This is Wall Farrar, and this I think was taken in 2023. And this was from one of their laydown yards, and the trucks would come in this direction. So as Karen knows all too well, they just kind of decimated everything, almost. But they stayed fairly confined. And where the orange lines, that's where we kind of we brought the trail back in. It's concrete versus asphalt, and which is, hopefully that'll last a little longer. What's shown in green is where we planted some trees. Everything else we seeded with native seed pretty much throughout the entire project. If it was in a natural area, that was another thing we talked about, because they originally had, hey, Bermuda grass everywhere. Oh, no, you're not. No, 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 no. In the natural areas, put native seed. Where our parks and ball fields, where there's Bermuda already, we'll do that. So this is what we planted in Wall Farrar. I think these are doing fairly well. We would stop drowning them. Thanks, Karen. But anyway, so I in the 15 gallons, we had volunteers. Grace, Cindy led that effort, and so I thought it was a really fun day. And I'm excited. Believe it or not, Texas persimmon was already out there when we originally put the Wall Farrar Trail in there, so I wanted to put some of that back in.
Planted by SW.
Southwest. They're a Southwest Nurseries. They're local. So we had contracted them to come in and do that piece, and then these. And so, although it's nice and tall, lots of ragweed has taken over, but that's when it was first planted, and we'll mow all that down in January, and yeah, and then we'll reseed again, and we'll just keep, because you got your first succession of just kind of those plants that we all don't like. But anyway, at least it tries to keep things from eroding, which is why it's tall, and we're just keeping it there to help for erosion. The second area that we did is in the Manhole Hill area, or just south of Rosecliff Terrace. On the far right is where Heritage is located. This is where we were able to realign the trail to bring it up out of the flood, even though people just love walking straight through there. That's okay. I get it, it's in more of the trees and everything else in a soft path. And then, so all that was seeded. We'll have to come back and seed again. As most of these natural areas, you just have to have patience. Here's what was planted. Unfortunately, these are doing okay, close to the tree line and most of the water. These, not, they're dead. So, yes. The bur oak is half dead. The rest of them are, I don't know if they overwatered, underwater. Needless to say, we were aware, and we are going to replant them here in the winter or early spring. And so I can't tell you the cause of that, but it's sad, and I know it is, and I'm sorry. Yeah. But we do have warranty, so warranty on them. So, here's the seed mix for that particular, kind of same, right? That we normally use. Yeah. Okay. I put Par Park in here. I know a lot of y'all are probably familiar with Par Park, but this was a project that started with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Agreement to kind of help get some of these prairies going, mainly to help with some of the grassland birds. Pollinators were kind of second on their list. Again, have patience. This is kind of leading leading the way in how we treat other natural areas in our department. It's not necessarily a project, but it's something that we're trying to internally not mow everything, leave, along some of the creek beds and everything. Don't mow. Let these roots do their thing. Lake, I don't have a slide for that because I know we're going to run out of time. But Lake Point is just off of Dove before you get to Oak Grove. If you're going from east to west, across from the Lake Point development, if you're finished with that, okay. It's also 4 acres in size, kind of the same size. This is just on the north side of Bear Creek of Parr Park, west of Old Mill Run. Keep Grapevine beautiful. And is it Meow Wolf? Has done a really excellent job in taking care of that. We've had some biologists, we've had some master naturalists come out there, and they said it was great. So I'm going to take their word for it and go, yay. Across Bear Creek in this retention area and this one over here, we're trying to get native grasses. I know there's a lot. I know there's a lot of Bermuda and there's a lot of Johnson grass, and we're slowly going to try and work through that and just reseed that as well. But we're just, again, trying to get more natural native grasses. But it's very difficult when you have something that's a budded residential area where everybody has Bermuda grass or some other non-native grass, and it just finds its way and it chokes out everything else. Here's the planting list for Parr Park that we used in a lot. We used obviously all seed, but then we also have transplants that we used in there as well. And the same would have to happen on the south side of the creek. We'll need to put some transplants and things of that sort. I think is the only thing that's going to go. Yeah, so obviously this is not just native grasses. So you got your wildflowers and some other forbs in there as well. Wonderful pictures of people doing some great work. If you haven't been to the Parr Park Prairie, please go. Here's my favorite part. As Linda Robbins may know now, doing these signs take a lot of time. To do the research, finding out all the information, and then whittling it down to those nuggets that people would appreciate is difficult. And then what's even more difficult is putting it in a graphic form that you think people would appreciate as well. So this took a lot of my time. Got with the marketing director as well to say, hey, this is what I was thinking, the layouts. We've tried different layouts and all this. And this was kind of this was the first one to get our style and our branding out there in the natural areas. So this is out at Parr Prairie. And then we also have another one that says Lake Point Park, and it's out there at Lake Point, that talks about the prairies and the most important thing about the roots and how to create, a natural sponge, and then to filter all the ick out of the water and everything else. So important. Who are pollinators? This is another interpretive sign we have out at Parr Prairie. Again, talking about bees. And anyway, just giving you behind the scenes of, I love the interpretive science. It's very important. It just takes a lot of time, especially when you're trying to do it in-house. And then the last one that's out there, the monarch butterfly. And of course, whatever we can do to educate the public and understanding the importance of biodiversity and pollinators is so important. And especially with all the flooding that we have, as we develop more natural areas, is a really good way to try to mitigate that. All right, on to my time. What do we got? Oh, okay. Settlers Park. Quickly, I'll go to this one. So Settlers Park is there in kind of the northeast part of town. If you know where the DFW Hilton is located, it's behind it. You can drive by and not even know it's there. You have State Highway 26. You have Hilton. You got the mall up here. You have Bass Pro, the actual Bass Pro over here to the right. If you take a left, go past the apartments, there'll be a little sign that says Settler Park. You can go in, and then you got, well, now we have 22, a little over 22 acres of mature woodland, a little over 6-acre pond that's spring fed. So it's with a weir, so it's a constant elevation. It is awesome. Hi.
That's cool.
Hmm?
Spring thing.
So the goals, practicing and encourage, science-based stewardship and of our natural and cultural resources. This one is really important: increase access to and participation in outdoors for all. We met with our Club All Access, Rise Sports, and the folks in our department that program for these kind of activities to better understand how we can provide an outdoor space for folks that are mentally and physically challenged. So everything except for the soft trails, anybody can get to it eventually. I understand we have a gravel parking lot and a very steep entrance into that at the moment. But everything is accessible, meets ADA requirements. So it's just, that in itself is just wonderful, and that it's spring fed and it's not on the lake where all the water and boats and everything else just creates such a calm environment for folks who are normally a little anxious or unsure, and now they can go and do something that might have been a little scarier to begin with, but now maybe they can enjoy the water and fishing and kayaking. So we already kind of talked about where it was. This started in 2018, and then COVID hit, and it was like, let's hold on. And but this wouldn't have been possible without the Grapevine Equity dedicating that property originally. Yes, sir.
Access is off of Bass Pro Court.
Yes. Yes. And funding, we had funding assistance from Texas Parks and Wildlife Local Park Grant Fund for our phase 1. We're getting ready to go into phase 2. We have more funding that we were awarded for that. Yes, part of it. So here, I just want to show you for those who haven't been there. So we have a little a wooded wetland area that we need to preserve. Here are some of the existing trails that were already there. Lots of rock outcropping. That's so cool, and the elevation change, and then of course the lake. This is a fountain from the DFW Hilton. Can you say donated the land? It's a Grapevine Equity Partners, now as part of Newcrest Image. You'll see their name on the building that's right on the street of State Highway 26, just north of Bass Pro. They owned it because they were going to develop quite a bit of it. Where the apartment complex, they owned that. Okay. Yep. And they were kind of like, they would have to spend too much money to try to do anything with it. And I think they realized that, hey, to try to attract people here, they were also going to put a hotel, that to have something that's outdoor right next to their development would increase the value. So, oh, for sure. You should have seen the appraisal value. That's not the appraisal value I got, but anyway, because we had to use that. We used that as our match. The donated land and the appraised value is our match for the grant. I couldn't get what they got, so I was like, okay, that's fine. So this is phase 1. Everything that's highlighted has been constructed today. So what's in yellow is a concrete multi-purpose pathway. This, and you can kind of see, I'll have some larger pictures, is an elevated boardwalk. Again, we wanted to make sure that this was all very easy to get to. So we have a very high elevated boardwalk, so people can get from this high elevation to over here. We have a restroom, picnic pavilion. We have soft surface or natural trails. A part of a fishing pier. Fishing pier is awesome, but you can see we only did a portion. The rest of this is planned out because that on our survey, people wanted fishing pier, and we didn't. We would put one out at Grapevine Lake, and it'd get smashed, whatever, or it would flood, or then we'd go in a drought. So it's hard to keep something that's accessible. This is fully accessible. So you can see some of the pictures that we have. So go out and see it. You can see the park amenities there. One of the things to help try to preserve what was already out there was trying to just have top-down construction. So when they were doing the elevated boardwalks, they get a little bit, they build a little bit, then they get a little further, and they build a little bit, they go a little further. So, and it had to be pile driven down in there, so there wasn't any drilling where dirt was coming out under the bottom of the pond. So it was all just hammering in the piles. Also, when building the trail, they didn't like that, but they knew that's what they bid on. They kind of had to go to the end and kind of come back versus trying to create a whole nother pathway or trail to go around and do all that. Nope, they had to. It was a mess, but they did it because we were trying to keep. We have to keep a buffer, 7 or so feet more along the shoreline, right? Because we want to keep a natural buffer along the water edge. And then we also wanted to prioritize. We did boring. That's always more expensive than trenching. That's not to say we didn't trench. We did do some trenching, but we did a lot of boring as well, going under the ground through the roots and all that. And then most importantly, we made it to where, hey, your quantities may change because I'm going to be out there going, oh, let's go to the right because we want to go around this tree and we need to go around to the left, or no, we need to go move way over here because we got a view or something. And so that's how this was written, to try to protect as much that was already out there. And in real time, that's the only way to do it. All the concrete spoils, we either used it for riprap or retaining walls, reuse some of the wooden piles. We don't have solar lighting out there yet, but we will. And then we used hardwood decking. We're not treating it or anything like that. It's just, this isn't environmentally because it's Brazilian hardwood, but it's supposed to be sustainably forested. I don't think that's a thing. But what I was more important is we don't have to go out there and stain it. We don't have to use monies to do that. All the labor, transportation, chemicals, all that. Just leaving it alone. So here are some pictures of the construction. So you can see, they're on top of this elevated boardwalk, and this piece hasn't been built. They'll build it. And I mean, yeah, there was no drinking on the job during this. And then this is the trail. So they're kind of starting at the end, and they had to put plywood on top of the rebar, or sometimes they would just do it in sections and they would move the rebar. They'd pour the concrete, so they had to buggy everything. It took a long time, and then they would go and put the thing back in, and then it's a big effort. But when you're prioritizing trying to preserve what's out there, you just do it. These are the natural sandstone boulders that were out there that we used as dry stack to hold this back. That's just concrete. So we kind of integrated some of that into it.
That's better than sending it to landfill.
Yes. So we kept a lot of that on site. Here's the seed and plant list for the disturbed areas. Mainly there was, it was so shady. So showy blackland prairie mix for shade. And you can see some of the switchgrass and others that we had placed in there. This is over there close to behind the Hilton. We were able to get an easement from Hilton to continue the trail, so we can eventually have a loop around around the entire pond. Eventually, yes, eventually. We still need to work with the Whittlesley Trust on the north side and try to get across. Um, so here's the fishing pier on the bottom and top. Here's the restroom with the bridge going across. This is our kind of service route as well. This is the little path that leads up to this little picnic pavilion that overlooks the water, our little natural trail. And this is kind of indicative of what you see for our concrete path. For the Hilton, yes. Now it is, just recently. So, yes. And then the multifamily, they have access down as well. And then the hotel across the street. So this is the elevated boardwalk I was talking about. This is what it looks like from an aerial view. You have a nice little picnic area to look out at the water. Here's that pavilion. You got some crib steps going down. Here's that bridge. You can barely see the restroom back here, but you can just see how we're just trying to work it through. No, it's been there. So when they had the patio, Austin patio, yes, Austin Patio Dude Ranch, that was there. And so, and the Whittlesley, they are the ones that own that. So they had owned everything, which Grapevine Equity bought that part, and then we ended up with it. Hilton bought the other that side. Austin Ranch, the Hilton now owns Austin Ranch, so we'll be able to continue with the trail north of there. Interpretive sign on the elevated boardwalk. Again, this was a lot of fun doing all the research. If you don't have iNaturalist, get it, because you can get on iNaturalist and you go, hey, I'm right here. Who all has identified stuff? What is there? And you can hit the little map, because I had my stuff and then I was like, oh, so here are some other things that people have identified. So I wouldn't be lying on, an interpretive sign so just to double check. So if you're out, use the iNaturalist app and observe and share so we all know what's out there. Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. So we put all that together and then sent it to an artist, because I understand that children respond to this kind of graphic better. So see, I learned a thing from the Par Prairie. So got this done, and we'll have more of these in our second phase that will talk about the birds, that will talk about even the Austin Patio Dude Ranch, other things that. So here's some pictures. And yeah, the little turtles I like to see. And then of course we do have a copperhead out there, but he was just happy. He was just sunning himself, so I had to take a picture. And then here's some things I got tickled about. So we have a beaver, and now we have two beavers. What was a little bit irritating is that we built the elevated boardwalk around that tree. We stained it, and it's an elm, and it's still alive. It doesn't look very pretty, but it is alive. It's still doing okay. And then I got so tickled because, we built the fishing pier for kids and families to have a place to go fishing. There's a heron there and a heron there. I didn't know I was building something for them to go fishing. And I'm thinking they must have had an argument early on. Yes, because they're back, so something happened. So, not yet. there is a lot. Texas Parks and Wildlife came out. They are tickled pink with what we're doing out there. So they came out and did a fish inventory in May. They'll come out again in the spring and do a second one so they can kind of get an idea of what all is out there. Then they will make a recommendation of what should be stocked or not. And you can kind of, black bass is out there, catfish, perch, bluegill. So anyway, so that was pretty cool because I had never, so they have these, and I don't have a picture of that, but they got the little electrical, thing like, when you scratch your head. So it goes down in there and they shock it. And it's not like you get fish to, die and rise to the bottom. They kind of have to scoop it out. I never saw a fish rise, but they would scoop out the fish, and then they would measure and weigh it, and they, take notes and
For dinner or throw them back?
throw them back in. And then, so yes, so they are aware, and they're helping us, and that we even got a couple of aerators that will be going into the lake in this phase 2 to help with the fish population. And yeah, it's just kind of cool. So here's phase 2. So this, hoping construction might start in April if all goes well. So down here at the bottom, we just acquired that 7 acres, which allows us now, we were relying on the developer to provide the permanent parking lot. Now we got to do it. So that's okay. Because so now we're in the process of trying to figure out, hey, what does that parking spot look like? I really, I'd like to have little pods. I don't want to have just this big square and yuck. So maybe, because we need to save some things. So in some sort of a park entrance, and then most importantly, an accessible access to it, and then connecting to our trail system. So we'll have some primitive tent camping sites that kind of double as little education nodes. That we'll have like 5th graders, 4th graders coming out in numbers of 100. Have some stations they can go and do their thing around there as well. We'll have a group pavilion at the north end with an accessible kayak dock and launch area. We'll extend the fishing pier, so it'll be this huge fishing pier walkway experience. In its deepest point at the top is a 24, but most like down here, along the 8 feet or so, and then it'll go down. It gets really shallow over here, because all the stormwater's going that way. But then it's spring fed as well. So it's awesome. It's constant. Where is,
Spring.
don't know. I can't find anybody that knows like where it is. And even with our, if I'm going to say this right, the bathymetry survey or whatever that we did, it doesn't, like, you can't sort of like gleam like, oh, is that where it is? But there on this side, there is so many with pumps, pipes, whatever coming out of that lake that I guess they used to pump water out of and fill other things with. So it's quite interesting. We were putting the trail through. Yes. Mm-hmm. Right. And there's that weir that keeps it constant. So. Yes, as part of our entrance, we'll have, a map of the park that will show where those things are located. And we'll have more signage of where we know we're lacking in, wayfinding signage out there and things of that sort. So yes.
Is temporary, I mean, not a paper thing, but something that would be at least temporary to show. Because we were uncertain whether we could walk all the way around, for example, because, you go over there, the hotels, and it's still okay, that it just help. But then just needs something that's more dynamic that you could be updating all the time, the QR code, so people didn't, could just have it on their phone. Yeah. And that way, when the route changes or built, you just, the website, that QR points to change.
Right, yeah, both, yes. Yes, ma'am. So if we just stay within this little piece here, it is about 6/10 of a mile. That's it. But before this was even done, especially over when we constructed this trail, because it was so thick, and I was just, I swore this thing was like a mile. Because you're in there in the brush and just going, I'm like, man, this is gonna be awesome. And then we get in there and then I'm like, well, that was like 5 steps and I'm already down at the end of the thing. And if you come all the way up here, maybe 7/10 of a mile. So, just think, if you go all the way around, half a mile. That's right. 2 laps and you got your mile. But remember, this will connect to the trail system. So you just take the trail here and you'll get your steps in that way. Then you take a, breather, and then you kind of see all that. Okay. So I think, yeah, I guess, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, take some time to go out there. This will be continuing. We're out. Justin, who's a park planner too, that works for me, we'll be out there adjusting like little rocks or creating a little step. And I'm like, this is something we're going to be tinkering around with forever. So anyway, so I think every time you go out there, you'll probably see, I know with the wildlife, you'll see something new. There is, I haven't seen, I've been told there's bobcats out there. I haven't seen it. Obviously lots of deer. Yeah. So, it's just all there, but the birds is just amazing. I mean, there's so many different types of heron I didn't even know. I'm like, what was that? I'm like, which one was that? And then it's like, and then of course listening to which the bird one that you can just to the sound, because yes, oh my goodness, you just go out there and it's like, oh, that's what that is, because you're not going to be able to see it. Merlin. Yes. So that is super helpful for those. So that is it. Y'all ask questions all the way during the time. So thank you very much.